Hello, everybody. Are you ready? Fletcher says, let's go. I agree. Let's go. Who knows what that I was just mimicking right there? Anybody know? Anybody know? If you know, I'll be super impressed and I'll take your exam for you. If you know. That would be a reference to the early 80s classic of Revenge of the Nerds when they took to the stage to defeat the evil fraternity from, I don't know, I forgot the whole premise of the movie. I was like really young. I just remember that part. Where's all the children of the 80s? Say hello. Where's all the people who had the members only jacket and the Michael Jackson glove? All right, so let's get going. Today we're doing property ownership. Who can tell me what is an easement? Who could tell me what an easement is? What's an easement? What's an easement? Anybody know? Who could tell me what an easement is? Anything you know about it, I'm eager to hear. You tell me what an easement is and I will smile. What do you guys think? It is an encumbrance. First and foremost, it's an encumbrance. So all you guys saying C, C, C. Not my question, but all right, fine. If you're going to be like that, I'll click C. Okay, it is an encumbrance. Good. What is an encumbrance? You could tell me what is an encumbrance. Anybody? What is an encumbrance? What is an encumbrance? Who knows? Congratulations, Caitlin Callie. Everybody say congratulations, Caitlin, and say it in whatever language you know. Felicidades, congratulations. Anything we got for you. Good job. Okay, an easement is an encumbrance. An encumbrance is anything that limits your ability to enjoy the property. Super important you know that to pass your real estate exam. An encumbrance is anything that limits your ability to enjoy the property. Give me an example of an encumbrance other than an easement. Give me an example of an encumbrance other than an easement. What do you guys got? Give me an example of an encumbrance other than an easement. A lien is an example of an encumbrance other than an easement. Encroachment as well. Nice job, Sydney Blackman. Good. A lien. What is a lien? What is a lien? Who could tell me what a lien is? Anybody, 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 anybody? What is a lien? What is a lien? A lien means you owe money. Money lien, money lien, money lien, money lien. Sometimes there's fun ways to remember acronyms, songs, all that fun stuff. Sometimes you just got to keep saying to yourself, money lien, money lien, lien, money lien, money lien, money. Not the most creative, but whatever. It's all I got. So why is an easement an encumbrance but not a lien? Because an easement has nothing to do with money. Everybody got that? An easement has nothing to do with money, but yet it's an encumbrance. Everybody got that right? I got it, Joe. You're so smart. You're the best teacher ever. I wish you were in my live class. So much better. You don't have to say all that, but you can if you want. Okay, so an easement is an encumbrance that doesn't have to do with money. What I'd like you guys to do next to help you pass your real estate exam is tell me the two main categories of liens. What are the two main categories of liens? What are the two main categories of liens? What are the two main categories of liens? Sovereign Royalty LLC says, got it, Joe? That's an interesting name. Sounds like one of those names I'll email me something that like I gotta send a checking account to some weird place. Okay, so you got voluntary, involuntary, and you have specific and general. I was looking for specific and general because really the only type of involuntary lien, the only type of voluntary lien is like if you get a loan, a mortgage. So I understand those two categories, but there's not much to talk about there. Specific and general has a lot more to talk about. So just to clarify, you could say the categories of voluntary and involuntary, but like I said, really the only voluntary I could think of is when you get a loan of some kind, whether it's for a home or a car or something of that nature. All right? So you have voluntary, involuntary, but I was talking about specific and general. What I'd like you guys to do in the chat right now is write the difference between a specific and general lien. Michael Garcia, if you want your video to be more clear, I would like you to click on the gearbox and change it to 720 HD. Change your settings to 720 HD, okay? So hopefully that helps. All right. So what is the difference between a specific and general lien? What do you guys think? Specific, you guys give me examples. I didn't ask for examples. I wanted the definition. I want the definition. Thank you, Maria. And here's the definition. General means they can take everything and anything they want from you. They're coming to get you. Everything. Specific means they can only take one thing specifically. Everybody got it? Before we go into the examples, I want you to understand that premise. Everybody got it? Specific means if you don't pay, they can take one thing specifically. Okay? General means they could come get everything. Got it? Yes or no? Okay, so now that we understand that, I'd like you guys to give me examples of a general lien. That's a little harder. Give me an example of a general lien. Who could give me examples of a general lien? Give me an example of a general lien. Who could do that? Alan says, Joe, I have a question. I am taking my test tomorrow. Yes, Alan, study your vocab today. All about the vocab today, Alan. Your test tomorrow, just go down that vocab. Okay, a general lien example would be like a judgment. If you lose a court case, they come after everything. And the other one is income tax is a general lien, not property tax. Everybody got it? Don't get that confused. A lot of you guys are running like taxes. That'll get you in trouble on the exam. All right? Is that a good tip? If you think that's a good tip, right? Good tip, Joe. I need that interaction. I need positive feedback too. I'm a human. I got a heart. I got feelings. Okay, so income tax is general. Property tax is specific. Everybody got that? Property tax is specific. Okay, so property tax is specific. Okay, now give me other examples of a specific lien. I would like some other examples of a specific lien. Can you do that for me? So you said property tax. Give me another example of a specific lien. Mechanics lien, nice job, Rutendo Guaze. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. If I did not, I apologize. Mechanics lien is a specific lien. Awesome. A mortgage is a specific lien. Good. When you get a mortgage in your house, that's specific lien. So things like property taxes, mechanics lien, mortgages, those are specific liens. Good. You guys are doing amazing. So a mortgage is a specific lien. Quick question. Who is the mortgage? Dun-dun-dun-dun. Who is the mortgagee? Who's the mortgagee? I hope you guys don't mind me talking. We'll get to some questions, but I feel like I got some valuable information to teach. So I want to make sure we understand it. Some important stuff here. Who is the mortgagee? It's the lender. Good. It is not the borrower and certainly not the buyer, because the buyer has nothing to do with a mortgage at all. You could buy a house without having a mortgage. It's the lender. But Joe, why is the mortgagee the lender when EE means you receive and they're the ones giving the money? Why would the lender be the mortgagee when they're giving the money? Because we learned the OREE rule, lessor, vendor, optionor, mortgagor, the give, or the proprietor for your pleasure. Lessee, vendee, optionee, grantee, give me property makes me happy. So what's going on with that? Nice job, Kika from New Jersey. Because before any money is given, they have to receive the promissory note, receive that pledge. Remember, mortgage actually is a pledge. It's a pledge. It's a promise. It's a pledge. Everybody got that? So before any money is given to anybody, the lender has to receive that pledge. The mortgage is not the money. Everybody got that? Write that down. Everybody write that in the chat. The mortgage is not the money. The mortgage is not the money. All right? That gets confused so often. The mortgage is the pledge. The mortgage is the pledge, not the money. And if you understand that, you'll get that ORE concept a little better. People always think mortgage is the money. It's not. It's the pledge. Is that a good tip? Good tip? Hope so. All right, let's go to another question now. What do you guys think? And when you think about it in those terms, it makes it a lot easier, right, guys? When you think of it as the pledge and not the money, it makes it a little easier. It's a little weird because people always say, I'm going to get a mortgage. I'm going to take out a mortgage. When really, they're the ones giving it, not taking it. But, you know, that wouldn't make sense to a lot of people. Okay, when the rent is charged is based on gross sale of business, the lease is correctly termed A, a percentage lease, B, a voidable lease, C, a gross lease, or D, a net lease. What do you guys think? And the answer is a percentage lease. What kind of lease would you have for your average rental property? Like your average residential property, I should say. What kind of lease would there be for your average residential property? That'd be a gross lease. A gross lease. Good. And what is a net lease? What is a net lease? And what is a net lease? What do you guys think? What is a net lease? A net lease is when the tenant pays for things like tax, insurance, and maintenance. Good. I feel like those questions are easy, so if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you one that's a little bit harder. Everybody ready? Right, ready, Joe. Bring it. Bring it. Here's my question. It's a little harder. Is a lease personal or real property? Da-da-da-dum. Da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-dum. Is a lease personal or real property? What do you guys think? Is a lease personal or real property? Personal. Why is a lease personal property? Because the sale of the house does not have to coordinate with the beginning and end of a lease. I know people like to say, well, a lease is a piece of paper. That's a simplified way to remember it. And honestly, who uses paper anyway these days? Like, thank you, Fred Flintstone. You want to bring me back to the Stone Age, right? I mean, come on, DocuSign. Let's get with it, folks, right? So the big deal is, remember, real property goes to the real estate. Personal property goes to the person. And a lease is a contract with a person, not the real estate. Right, guys? Think about it logically. When you sell and buy real estate, the lease doesn't begin and end with it. It can, but it doesn't have to. You could begin and end in a lease at any time during your ownership. Right? Does that make sense? And when you think about that, it almost makes more sense than the paper example, right? It makes more sense when you're like, oh yeah, I could have many leases during the term of ownership. That lease does not coordinate with the ownership of the property. Right, guys? Okay. Does that make more sense than the paper thing? I just feel like if you understand it, it makes a lot more sense. Alan is yelling at me. Joe, can you go over gross lease and triple net lease? Alan, you don't need to yell at me. How many guys, when people text you in caps, like all caps, you're like, hey, relax, all right? I have feelings. You don't need to get up with my face about it, all right? All those capital letters in the thing. So yes, Alan, I hear you. All right, so can you go over gross lease and triple net? So Alan, a gross lease is just a lease that you have for residential properties. Not much more to say about it. It just means you're paying a set amount. And a net lease is more typical in commercial business, all right, where the tenant, because they're using for commercial purposes, will volunteer to pay taxes, insurance, and maintenance as part of the agreement. Okay. Thank you for your question, Alan. All right, so now, is lease personal or real property? We said personal property. Give me another word for personal property that you learned for your real estate exam. Well done, Alan. You have matched me. The student has now become the master. Okay, what is another word for personal property? Chattel, real. How do we know? A one, 2, 3. Chattel, cattle, cows, move. It's movable. Remember that, movable. How ridiculous do we sound when we do that? I know it's ridiculous, but you're going to be in your exam going, chug, move, pass, woo! You'll be excited. Sound ridiculous now, having a real estate license later, right, guys? All these smart people with their fancy definitions. Now I'm just sitting here making farm noises. What does that say about me? I don't know. As long as you pass, I'm okay with it. Movable. Okay, what is the opposite of alienation? A, subordination, B, hypothecation, C, acquisition, or D, subrogation? Sunita says, hi, Joe. Hi, Sunita. And the answer is acquisition. Good. When you alienate something, you're getting rid of full responsibility. You're getting rid of it. Ooh, joint tenants. Okay, we're going to do a question about this. Then we're going to talk about this super important topic. But let's do the question. If 5 people own property as joint tenants, A, and one of the owners die, his heirs become tenants in common with the surviving co-owners. B, there is still only one title to the whole property. C, they need not own equal interest in the property. Or D, each co-owner has separate legal title to his undivided interest. Or, I don't know, I don't like reading, I just circled the longest answer. How many of you guys are going with that option? I don't know, whatever the longest answer is. And that does work sometimes, but not this time. This time there is still only one title to the whole property. So let's back up for a second. What are the 2 ways you could own property? There's 2 general ways you could own property. And the answer is much simpler than you could think of, okay? So don't get overly complicated. What are the 2 ways you can own property? And don't overcomplicate it. That's my hint to you. That's the boop-boop hint. What do you guys think? The 2 ways you could own property is by yourself or with somebody else. By yourself or with somebody else. Right, guys? I said don't overcomplicate it. By yourself or with somebody else. What's it called when you own property with somebody else? That would be a concurrent estate. When you own it by yourself, that is known as an estate in severalty. Everybody got that? That's severalty. Got it? Everybody right? I got it, Joe. I got it. Severalty is by yourself. Concurrent is with others. Got it? I got it, Joe. You're so smart. Okay, now there's not many options for severalty, but there are options for concurrent estates. What are the two types of concurrent estates I like to talk about when helping you guys pass the real estate exam? What are the two types of concurrent estates I like to talk about when helping you prepare for the real estate exam? So one is joint tenancy, as it shows on the board, and the other is tenancy in common. Who could tell me what makes a joint tenancy joint tenancy? What makes a joint tenancy joint tenancy? Anybody? What do you need for a joint tenancy to be joint tenants? Ponce de Leon says to tip. To tip. And that stands for time, title, interest, and possession. Those are known as the 4 unities. If you never heard that before, I would like you to write it down. Time, title, interest, and possession. Everybody write that down. Congratulations, David, on passing his real estate exam a couple of days ago. Okay, time, title, interest, and possession. Nice job, everybody. And there's something else beyond that that makes a joint tenancy joint tenancy. Some of you guys named in the chat already. Beyond time, title, interest, and possession, there's also the right of survivorship. The right of survivorship. Nice job, folks. So it's the right of survivorship. So let's talk about those two things. So first you got to tip. Time means it was taken by the same time. You took it together. Title means you're both on title equally. Interest means you have the same shared interest in the property. And possession, you have both of the right to open the door and watch TV there. It's yours. Right of survivorship means that if I die, you get the property if we have joint tenants, if we have joint tenancy. If we're joint tenants together. What? Somebody hit the thumbs down on my video? Can you guys counter that with a lot of thumbs up, please? I got one dislike on my video. My ego is shattered. Okay, so joint tenancy has the right of survivorship. So if I am a joint tenant with you, okay, and I die, you get property. So my question is, can you will a property that is joint tenancy to your heirs? Can you will a property, all right, to your heirs if you agreed as joint tenants? To be honest, I've never looked at that thumbs up, thumbs down thing before until somebody just mentioned in the chat just now. All the webinars I did, I've never really looked at that. Well, that's going to add to my insecurity moving forward as I teach these webinars. Okay, so no, you cannot will it to your heirs. If you want to be able to will it to your heirs, you should take it as a tenancy in common. You should take it as a tenancy in common. You should take it as a tenancy in common. All right? What unity do you need for a tenancy in common to be a tenancy in common? To joint tenancy, we said add 4, right? Time, title, interest, and possession. Which out of those 4 is needed for a tenancy in common? What do you guys think? Possession is the only one that's needed for a tenancy in common. Nice job, guys. Possession is the only one that's needed for a tenancy in common. So, joint tenancy, you need time, title, interest, and possession. And tenancy in common is just possession. All right? Here's my tip for you guys on your exam. Be careful if they say, what is required for tenancy in common? And they'll trick you by doing this. Everybody ready? It's super evil. They'll say, time, interest, possession, and all of the above. And people will automatically think, oh, it's tip, all of the above. When they don't read the question, and it's not asking about joint tenancy, it's asking about tenancy in common. And they do that to catch all the people who automatically go to all of the above. It's tricky, right, guys? So they'll say, which of the following is required for a tenancy in common? And I'll say something like time, possession, and interest, or all of the above. And people are like, oh, all of the above. I remember it's tip, time, tenant, interest, possession. Nope, the answer is possession. Hopefully, is that a good tip? Hopefully that helps. Okay, the other thing about tenancy in common is there's no right of survivorship. There's no right of survivorship. Therefore, if we take a property as a tenancy in common and I die, all right, then I could will it to my heirs. Heir, I only have one heir. Okay, I could will it to him. Okay, he gets the property because there's no right of survivorship. So I have two questions for you guys. Ready? Say, ready, Joe. Here's my two questions to test your understanding of this. See how well you understand this. What is the heir? Like my kids, or for me, kids, singular. The question is, which of these would you take with a corporation? One of these you cannot take with a corporation. One of them you can. Which of these would you take with a corporation? Dun-dun-dun-dun. Tenancy in common, because that right of survivorship would prohibit it from being a joint tenancy. Everybody got that? So Nia says, any tips, Joe, for my test? Isn't that like what all these webinars are all about? Just a lot of tips for your test? Says, do you have any tips for my exam? I feel like that's what I'm doing now. Right, guys? Okay. So tenancy in common is what you take with a corporation. Okay? These corporations don't die. My next question is, which of these two is more normal? Like, what's the more one you see on a regular basis? What do you guys think? What do you guys think? Which one is more typically used? So, the more common one is tenancy in common. Okay? Just think about it, it's less restrictive. To take somebody as a joint tenant with somebody, you got to be really tight at the hip. Like, that's a commitment. Tenancy in common is the more typical you would take with somebody because not everything needs to be equal. Remember that whole will thing? You want to be able to will your portion to your heirs. Okay? Joint tenancy, that's not allowed. So tenancy in common is the more standard one. Joint tenancy is more for unique situations. Elise says, what about spouses? I'm not going to get into that because the marriage law is different from state to state. I'm doing this for everybody. I'm trying to go over content that applies to everybody. But it's a good question, Elise. It's a good question. I just don't want to get into it on this webinar because marriage laws change from state to state. Which of the following is not an example of police power? Health and safety, zoning, rent control, or declaration of restrictions? What do you guys think? The answer is declaration of restrictions. Oh, a lot of you guys are getting this one wrong. We got to talk about this. Restrictions are put on by developers, right? Rent control, zoning, and the whole gist of police powers for the health and safety of the general public. Those are mandated laws by the area, by the state, or whatever it may be. Declaration of restrictions are done by individuals, usually by the developers who contract everything. So think of it this way. Rent control and zoning doesn't apply to just one property. And here's the way to think of it, the way to remember it. All right, guys? Declaration of restrictions, think about it. That applies differently to each property, each building, each condo complex, or whatever it may be. Right? So therefore, obviously, the government couldn't sit here and put different rules for each individual property. Right, guys? That'd be way too much work for them. The government puts rules that apply to everybody. And if you're in an area that has rent control, it applies to all the buildings in that area. And same with the zoning. Whereas the declaration of restrictions on the property could change as per each different subdivision. Got it? All right, but with that being said, who could tell me the government powers? What are the 4 government powers? What are the 4 government powers? People are like, I don't know. I just know I got to keep yelling Pete and write Pete in capital letters, and I feel like I did something. Right? So don't just write Pete. What does it stand for? What does Pete stand for? Pete stands for police power, eminent domain, taxation, and escheat. Police power, eminent domain, taxation, and escheat. Police power, eminent domain, taxation, and escheat. Okay? Police power, eminent domain, taxation, and escheat. These are the government powers. What is the fundamental difference between police power and eminent domain? What do you guys think? What is the fundamental difference between police power and eminent domain? What do you guys think? What is the fundamental difference between police power and eminent domain? I'll give you a hint. Ready? Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. I feel like that's the internal sound for money, right? Is that? Did you guys catch that hint? I'm not sure if that was a good hint. Cha-ching! Is that money? Was it clear I was referring to money? Or is it just like some weird noise that made no sense? Okay, the big difference is money. Some of you guys are saying compensation. That's right. See, in eminent domain, they could take the property away from you. And because they do that through this process of condemnation, you get paid. They give you money for the property. Everybody got it? Police power, no money is exchanged. They're not taking the property away from you. They're just going to tell you how to use it through things like rent control and zoning, as we see on the board. Okay, and also building codes. All right, everybody got that? That's the fundamental difference. In police power, they will tell you how to use the property, but they're not taking away from you, and therefore, no money is given. You guys got that? Whereas with eminent domain, money is given because they're taking the property away from you. And that's the process of condemnation. Some of you guys heard that like when a property is condemned, if that helps you remember, when something's condemned, what does that mean? It means you can't use it anymore. So condemnation means they're making that you can't use it anymore. They're taking it away from you. Everybody got it? The government saying your property can't be used because we're putting a highway right through your living room. So it's condemned, condemnation. Can't use it anymore. Does that help put it into context? And because we put a highway through your property, we're going to give you money for your property. Okay? What's it called where if the money they give you doesn't justify the value and you want to sue the government for the amount you believe you deserve for the property? What's that called when you're suing the government? Anybody? What's that called? Good luck, Sonia. So that would be inverse condemnation. Courtney Gibney Buckley was the first on the board with that. High five, fist bump. Inverse, can I tell you something that's really awkward? I get the fist bump, I get the high five, I get the handshake. The shoulder bump, some guy like saw me the other day, he shook my hand, pulled me close, and we bumped shoulders, and then he patted me on the back, and I was like, there's a lot going on there that I'm not totally comfortable with. It was just a lot of physical introduction. Maybe I'm just more of a fist bump guy. Frankly, I'm not even a fist bump guy. I'm more of a point at you guy and be like, hey, how you doing? I see ya. Great. That's enough for me. I don't know. We're all different. Anybody ever experienced that where you go to shake someone's hand, they pull you in and do like a shoulder bump, pat you on the back, and you're like, really? Really? A little much? Okay, here we go. So police power, eminent domain, taxation, and escheat. And these are all encumbrances, and they are the reason that even if you have a fee simple absolute estate, okay, fee simple absolute estate, all right, you don't really fully, you're not free of encumbrance because those police powers. You guys got that? When we say in a fee simple absolute estate, you have absolute ownership, typically people say no because there's taxes, right, guys? But it's more than that. It's also police power, eminent domain, taxation, escheat. The government's ability to limit your property. So Pete is a form of encumbrances. They limit your ability to enjoy the property. They deny you complete ownership. Does that help, Abby Sturgis? Hopefully that helps. All right, guys. Well, that's about it for today. I hope you enjoyed it. We didn't go through a lot of questions, but we did a lot of explaining. If you guys enjoyed the webinar, give me that thumbs up and give me a nice comment in the comments below. I'd love that. Some nice positivity sent my way would be appreciated. I put a lot of heart in these webinars, try and do a good job, as Cynthia and Stu does as well. And the best way to show appreciation, if you believe we deserve it, obviously only if you believe we deserve it, is a nice comment in the comments below on the YouTube channel. Thank you, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow. See you soon. Thank you.